Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be talking to you about applying to a biology course at university. But first, just a quick introduction to myself. So my name is Amelia and I'm a UK Student Recruitment Assistant for the University of Sheffield on the school's liaison team. I'm originally from around Guildford in Surrey and I studied biology, psychology and English literature at A-level, as well as an EPQ, so an extended project qualification. And I came to Sheffield to study for a Bachelor's of Science in Biology, and I just finished that in June this year. So today I'm going to be going into a little bit of detail about how I chose the course, the application process, and some tips and tricks that I have for you when applying. When I was looking at applying to biology, I was a bit worried about the fact that the only other science I did at A-level was psychology. I think there's a bit of a stereotype or an expectation that to succeed in a science subject, you need to have done everything at A-level, so chemistry, physics and maths, even if you're studying biology at university. And while some biology courses do ask that you have, say, biology and chemistry, it's definitely not a requirement for all of them. And I just wanted to mention that and that there is a wide variety in biology courses, especially in case you're in a similar position to me. Maybe you're a bit worried, you think you're not qualified enough. Check the course web pages. All of them are different. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that before I got started. But I am going to assume if you're considering applying to biology at university, then you're probably very familiar with it and have studied it for quite a while before at school. As you probably know, biology offers the opportunity to get up close and personal with a plethora of human, animal and cellular life. You become very well versed in the very extensive field of biology and learned through really varied methods of teaching as well. So lectures, small group tutorials, workshops, field courses, labs. It's such a varied way of teaching. And something that was appealing to me about studying biology was the familiarity and the flexibility of the subject. I knew that I really enjoyed biology and that I wanted to continue studying it and finding out more, but I still wasn't sure which part of biology I wanted to specialise in, if at all. And a biology degree really allowed me that flexibility. And the main difference that I found studying biology at university is the opportunity to actually apply your new skills and your knowledge. So the equipment that they have is leaps and bounds above the 50-year-old microscope that you'll find in your GCSE science classroom. And it really allows you not only the space, but the time to explore those new techniques. So you can analyse stem cells, sequence DNA, study proteins and enzymes, and working at that deep molecular level is something that I never had the opportunity to do until coming to university. So I think that's a real benefit to continue studying it. The great thing about biology though is that it really doesn't limit your career options. You can go down a subject-related career path, so some of the most typical ones are further study and research. And by research, I mean going to work in a particular academic or research laboratory. So there you would carry out original, high-level research that generates new knowledge and or progresses current understanding as well. So you generally have to specialise here. You could be a microbiologist dealing with microorganisms. You could be a pharmacologist, understanding how medicines work, or even a zoologist studying animal behaviour and interactions. So there are research roles in every area of biology, which I think is why it's such a popular route to go down. Another popular route at the moment is science communication. So this is the practice of informing, educating, raising awareness really of science-related topics to the general public. And basically, you can be the next David Attenborough, which is really cool. It's a really important field, and the communication skills you learn in a biology course can help you get into this. There are some other typical sectors as well, so going into health, working for the NHS, or agriculture, looking at sustainably increasing food production, or some kind of environmental consultancy as well. That's quite a popular route. But there are some other opportunities, so career paths that aren't subject related. There's a really good statistic that 60% of graduate schemes are open to all degree disciplines. And these range from some science-focused ones to the top 100 employers. So companies like Google, the BBC, the civil service, everything. You can go into all manner of sectors. So consultancy, banking, finance. You really aren't restricted at all with a biology degree, which is something that was really appealing to me and I think is quite unique as well. So I've put a few companies on screen that some recent Sheffield graduates have gone into, but there's so many more than this. I couldn't fit them all on one slide. I just chose a few that I thought were representative. And I think the reason that your career paths are so open in biology is that a biology degree gives you a really wide range of skills, including some that you may have started developing at school. So the core one I would say is research and data analysis. So you spend a lot of your time in the lab gaining practical skills from microscopes to PCR techniques. And data analysis is something that I hadn't really had the opportunity to do before coming to university, especially as I didn't take any maths-based subjects at A-level. I hadn't really done much in the way of statistics before. But at Sheffield, we had a whole data analysis course where we learned R coding software. And this meant that we could present our research findings in really pretty graphs that we'd made ourselves with code, and they looked really professional. And it's such a good skill to have on my CV because it is really important. What's the point of doing research if you can't present it? So if you've done any coding before, I know quite a few people on my course coded for fun, like as a hobby. So if you have done that, even if it's not the software that we use at university, definitely mention it and showcase that you have that skill in your personal statement. So next, written and verbal communication. Again, you need to be able to present your findings from your research. So whether that be a presentation to your peers or a written report, you do these so much at university that it becomes second nature, but it can take a while to become confident with it. So if you can show in your application that you've done some presentations before, or you have experience writing a blog, that would be really great as well. And also teamwork and project management are so important in biology. Dividing up tasks evenly between everyone and playing to each other's strengths and listening to each other when in a group project, they're all really key to a successful project. So if you have worked in a team in the past, and I'm sure you have, if that's a part-time job, a sports team, mention it in your personal statement, say how you worked within the team to improve it, to get up everyone's morale, or just generally being a team player. Also, problem solving. Sadly, not everything always goes right in biology. Sometimes you forget to water your plants and they all die, or you set the light intensity incorrectly and they burn. But it's okay. You just need to reassess the situation, set new deadlines for your work, and keep going. And because this happens so often in biology, it is a really important skill to have. IT literacy is important as well, to be able to make presentations, write reports, integrate diagrams or figures into your work. Again, presenting your work is an important skill to have, and this all builds into that. So if you have any of these skills that I have mentioned, make sure that you reference it in your personal statement and evidence where exactly you gained this skill. If you've done a group project at school where you've showcased project management, make sure you reference what your role was in that project and not just the fact that you have that skill. So, as I said before, the skills that you learn in a biology course at university are really wide-ranging and really useful for both a career in biology and a career in general, really. So now just a bit about biology at Sheffield. One thing about Sheffield that really stuck out to me was the modules. So the different subject areas were so different and so varied. There was so much choice. So I had the opportunity to learn about sustainable agroecosystems 1 minute, to extrasolar planets and astrobiology another. One of my favourite modules was insect biology, which on the surface doesn't sound very interesting, But in the lab once, we looked at locusts and the mechanics behind how they jump. And as you can imagine, this got very chaotic very quickly, with about 50 students in the lab, each with a handful of locusts each. And they were jumping all over the place. We lost a few, but it was really fun and really interesting. And one of those things that's really stuck with me because it was so different and so unique, and so informative as well. So the good thing about there being so much choice on the course is that you can specialise if you choose to, even if you've started on the general biology course. So at Sheffield, as long as you've chosen the required modules for the degree that you want to change to, which presumably you have if you want to change to it, then you should be able to change your degree title. For example, if you've done a lot of animal behaviour, if you're interested in zoology, you can change from biology to zoology, or you can change to plant sciences. Not everyone does this. I decided not to in the end because I enjoyed the variety and the option to choose exactly what I wanted to, as inevitably with more specialist subjects you do get less choice. But the option is there if it's something that you want to do, and if you're thinking about it, then make sure that you include any specific interests you might have in your personal statement. Another selling point of Sheffield is its proximity to the Peak District National Park. It's only a 10-minute drive from where your first year accommodation is, and being so close to nature is a bonus for any city. But it was especially important to me as a biology student because it meant that we could go and do field work, we could survey biodiversity, but it was also only a short while away at the weekend when my friends and I wanted to go for long walks or swims. So I really love that about Sheffield, and that's really important to me. And finally, I found that research-led teaching was so important when completing a science degree. So at Sheffield, your lecturers are involved in their own research too, and that means that what you are being taught is the most new, up-to-date and emerging science because they base their teaching on their own research. And as you know, science is improving and changing constantly, so knowing that everything is at the absolute forefront of innovation is really cool. I thought it would be useful to take you through a typical week as a biology student, hopefully to give you a bit of an idea as to how you'll spend your time. I generally had about 17 hours of contact time per week, which was in the middle of what people tend to have at university. So some of my friends who did engineering had a lot more contact hours than me, and some of my friends who did philosophy and history had a lot less than me and were expected to study independently more. But be warned, even though you have in the middle, it's not all of your work for the week, and you are expected to do a lot of self-guided learning as well. So writing lab reports or essays, doing preparation for labs as well. So if you've done any of this before, make sure that you highlight it in your application. It doesn't have to be science related. For example, in year 13, I completed an extended project qualification, so an EPQ, as I mentioned before. And that was entirely driven by my own research, and I completed it in my own time. And universities really value that. So some, like Sheffield, even offer reduced entry requirements for having an EPQ, which shows how highly they value independent learning. But not all that you do as a science student is study. As you can see, Wednesday afternoons were always kept free for sports and societies, so I would play netball in this time. And I think this is generally the case at most universities. So you do have time off as well, and time to do other things and explore the city, generally enrich your life. And as you can also see, there's a really broad range of different teaching styles that require those different skills that I mentioned before. So you'll use IT literacy in your maths workshops where you're learning code. You'll use research skills and project management in the lab, written communication to make notes in lectures that actually make sense. The list goes on. So another great thing about Sheffield and studying biology in general is the research opportunities. In my third year, I completed both a dissertation and a research project as well. I know you might have come across the word dissertation before, but maybe you aren't 100% sure what it means. It is a long essay completed towards the end of your degree, and it reviews different points of view about a certain topic that you have chosen yourself and researched extensively yourself. So this was a really great opportunity for me to complete some secondary research about an area of the world that I might not have been able to complete primary research. So I focused mine on the tropics. And then after completing that, I got to do an in-depth research project on a different subject entirely. So on here, I've included some photos of my tiny little tomato plants that I grew hydroponically, so without soil, and looked at how they were affected by a particular disease strain. This I completed in the lab in Sheffield, so it was really cool that I got to look at something both far away in the tropics and close to home as well. And this is just something that I decided to do. You really get a lot of freedom with your dissertation, so you can choose anything you want really, and your dissertation supervisor will be there to guide you through it. So now I'm going to give you some top tips when you're looking at different university courses. As I said before, check the course requirements carefully, as this will vary between institutions. If I had assumed that all biology courses would have the same entry requirements as the very first course that I looked at, then I would have thought that I couldn't do a biology degree at all. So make sure you check them and try to apply to 5 universities with a range of entry requirements. So some aspirational, some realistic. Keep your options open here. I would definitely look at the research facilities too if you get the opportunity to go and visit on an open day or something like that. You'll be spending 8+ hours a week in labs and research facilities, so it is important. And I found when I was looking around universities that they all had different feelings to them and different equipment as well. In the third year project that I just mentioned, I actually had the chance to use the controlled environment facilities at Sheffield to grow my tomato plants. And I remember seeing them on an open day and thinking that's really cool because you can imitate different environments in the chambers. So you can imitate an Arctic environment or a tropical rainforest. And not every university has this. They might have something different that you're interested in. So look at this carefully if there is something that's particularly important to you. As I mentioned before, consider the module options in your university selections. So Sheffield has a very broad biology course, but not every university is going to be the same. So think about that. Finally, would you like to apply for any other programs? So all of these I've mentioned here will probably add another year of study to your course, so show a higher level of interest and commitment to the subject. You could apply for a year-long placement or a year in industry where you work for a company for a year. Others may study abroad for a year to get research experience at other universities with different research interests, or you could do an integrated master's programme. So that's a 4-year programme which combines undergraduate and postgraduate study into a single course. And if you plan on having an advanced technical or research career in biology, then those courses can be really valuable. If you are considering applying for any of these though, I'd highly recommend doing it at the time of application. So it's a lot easier to swap off of these courses if you decide against it than it is to swap onto them, as they are really popular. And of course they are optional. There's no problem with not doing any of them either. I didn't. So now onto some personal statement tips. I think the general rule is to keep it course focused. So 75% should be focused on the course, while 25% can be more about you. So your hobbies outside of school, any sports that you do, volunteering. With all of these though, make sure you relate those extracurricular activities back to the skills that you'll be required to use at university. So those ones that I mentioned before, the teamwork, the project management. Next, is there anything in particular that interests you about biology? For example, is there a certain area that you found interesting at A-level or in your BTEC Applied Science course? Did you read a biology-related book over summer that you really captured your interest, or have you read any recent scientific breakthroughs that you found interesting? This could be related to any part of biology, and you could mention it in your personal statement to demonstrate your engagement with the subject, but make sure that you've read the university web pages and that they actually cover that subject area in their course. So research the wider subject, but also research the degree itself. You also need to think about what you want to get out of the course. If you have a career path in mind, don't be afraid to mention it and how you plan on getting there and how a biology degree will help you do this. Most importantly, every time you write about a skill that you have, make sure you relate that skill to a specific experience or role that you've had in the past. So if you think from an admissions tutor's perspective, they will want to see evidence of any skill that you reference. Unfortunately, they don't know you. They can't just trust that you have team working skills. You have to prove it to them. So if you had a part-time job where you had to work as a team, reference it as evidence for team working. And finally, don't overthink it. If you really are passionate and interested in a subject, then it will show through when you're writing about it. So just remember to showcase any skills that you have to give you the best chance when you're applying to university. So that was my whistle-stop tour of applying to biology at university and a little bit about Sheffield as well. So I really hope that you've found this useful, and thank you so much for listening. If you have any further questions specific to biology courses at Sheffield, then you can follow this link here to register for an open day or a subject taster day, as well as chat to some current students. So thank you again.